What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dudes and dudettes? Welcome back to another episode of your potentially favorite Nigerian podcast. Emphasis in this episode on the Nigerian because of all I want to talk about today. Bear with me, your host, General Prime. All right, so I'm sure everybody knows about Kemi Badenoch by now. If you don't know about her, I'm going to put her picture here. She's the I don't know what she is actually. She's the conservative fucking candidate in the UK. I don't know if she's trying to run for to become the prime minister of the UK or whatever, but everybody in Nigeria, most online conscious people in Nigeria know who she is as the woman that is denouncing Nigeria, and she's always like shading Nigeria and talking bad about Nigeria. Most of what she says, some of what she says, not most, some of what she says, I actually agree with, like the way she talks about how bad the Nigerian system is, how disheveled it is, how corrupt the entirety of Nigeria is, the government, the people, actually the system, as in just the way things are run in Nigeria. Like I actually agree with her when she makes those points. But recently she has been trending, and the reason why she's been trending is because she has gone outright to, first of all, denounce Nigeria. Like she doesn't even want to have anything to do with Nigeria as a country. She doesn't even want to admit that she's actually Nigerian. And in one of the interviews where she was in, she talked about her time in the time she spent in the Nigerian schools that she attended and the experiences she had. And she talked about how Nigerian schools are like prisons, and how just how bad basically Nigerian schools are. And a lot of Nigerians that saw that clip kind of like said they are coming for her, like rightfully, understandably. They were just talking bad about her. Just everybody's just angry with her because of how often she ridicules Nigeria. And to some extent, like, yes, she has to ridicule Nigeria. She has to like call out the incompetence about Nigeria. She has to like talk about how bad Nigeria is, so that at least it can come to the consciousness of some of the people in power in Nigeria. And that is even if they have conscience to begin with. It can come to their consciousness, but obviously they don't have conscience and they don't actually care about Nigeria, and maybe they can do something about how bad the system is in Nigeria. So yes, people were coming for her, but the truth of the matter is that what she said specifically about Nigerian schools, not the other things that she talked about, what she said specifically about Nigerian schools is actually correct. I mean, and that's what I want to talk about today. So most of us, all of us that have attended, all we Nigerians that have attended Nigerian schools, know how their Nigerian educational system is basically. Know how Nigerian schools are being run, know how Nigeria, just know everything that concerns Nigerian schools. So that's actually what I want to talk about today. The first thing I want to make mention of is that I grew up in a relatively middle class family in Nigeria. Like I was raised up in the middle class level of society in Nigeria, which by the way has largely disappeared right now, all thanks to Tinubu, who by the way nobody knows where he is. Like nobody can actually pinpoint to where Tinubu is right now. Where is our president? Not our president. He's not my president. Where is the president of Nigeria? He's nowhere to be found. He has disappeared he has disappeared as usual, bro. Tinubu. May Tinubu not happen to Nigeria again. That nigga has disappeared though. Nobody knows where he is. He has traveled. He has gone back to France to chill. He has just gone to somewhere to just relax. Nobody. The country is just like, the country keeps on deteriorating more and more, and he doesn't care. So all thanks to Tinubu, the middle class society has disappeared. It has vanished. We don't have that in Nigeria anymore. What you have now are the extremely rich, the surviving, and the extremely poor. There is no such thing as middle class society in Nigeria. But back when Nigeria used to be relatively okay, I grew up in a middle class society in Nigeria, and I attended private schools all through from my nursery to when I graduated secondary school and then went to the university. I attended private schools, the posh private schools that rich people send their kids to, and money is well spent. But right from like nursery school and when I got into like primary schools, I never really actually liked school. Like I've never like school was never appealing to me. School was never the place where I looked forward to going to. Like I remember growing up, and every time like I had to like every time we had to get ready for school, I and my siblings, like it was like going to war. Do you understand? Because there was nothing enjoyable. There was nothing anticipating about school. There was nothing to look forward to. School basically was the first symptom I noticed about things, about how off the country Nigeria was. Like school to me was the first symptom of what I noticed about what is wrong with Nigeria. Because to begin with, what I noticed was that school was what I've actually come to realize, like now that I've grown up, now that I've matured, and looking back as in retrospect, what I've come to understand is that school, the Nigerian educational system, the Nigerian schooling system, was never actually designed to be educational in the correct sense of the word. It was designed to be regimental. It was designed to be, brainwashing. It was designed for you to appeal to authority, for you to just accept whatever it is the authority in power tells you, hook, line, and sinker. It was not designed for people to actually, think for themselves. It was not designed for people to actually like go out of their way to be creative, to want to, as kids back then growing up, kids are naturally curious. Kids just want to explore. Kids want to understand all that is going on. But for you to then be put in a situation where you're not allowed to question, you're not allowed to explore your creative process, you're not allowed to be yourself, you're not allowed to just, come to terms with who you are and understand yourself properly. All you had to do was just sit down, stay quiet, be in one place, sit down there for like hours and hours and listen to whatever it is this boring ass teacher, this boring, and not even only boring, scary also, and bitter, and just not enthusiastic about their job, just sitting down there and just doing the barest minimum. And it wasn't, to me, looking back, it's not a place where it's not conducive for a growing child, a child that is in his exploratory stage, a child that is like trying to understand the world, a child that is like trying to like grasp and touch things and ask questions and come to terms with the reality, or with the reality of the world that he has found himself to be in. And so school to me was just bad. School was boring. I never looked forward to going to school. I never really wanted to as in if I actually never had the chance. We actually never had the chance as people who, as in I and my siblings, we never missed school. Not that we didn't want to, we just never had the choice of missing school because school fees was always paid and everything was just perfect. But so like it was never an enjoyable experience for me. It was never a place that I actually wanted to go to because there was no, aside from the occasional physical activities and the birthdays and the excursions. Sometimes we went on excursions. Aside from all of those little nuggets of fun here and there, everything else about school to me in the early days was just bad. And I'm talking about primary school now. And so when I now graduated into secondary school, which was also a private school, actually owned by the government of Denmark. Like I attended 3 secondary schools, 2 were private and 1 was a government school. And the first one I attended was like this very posh private secondary school that was owned by the government of Denmark. And the experiences I had there are unforgettable, to say the least. But it's also it was also like the same with primary school, where now I found myself in this new environment, and they were actually even when I was like transitioning to when I was in like primary 5 and then transitioning into like when we're about to transition into like secondary school, they were telling us to prepare that things were going to be different from how primary school was, and things were going to be just a lot complex. And with that mindset, and I got into secondary school with that mindset, and I found that things were actually kind of the same in a way, whereby we're not, we're still not allowed to like use our brains. We're still not allowed to like be creative on our own. We're still not allowed to ask questions that we are outside of the box of the norm that was in the educational curriculum. Do you understand? We're still not allowed to like explore. We're still not allowed to, to find ourselves, to come to terms with what we actually wanted to do, what we actually wanted, who we actually wanted to be. We were still regimented. We're still, we're still like appealing to authority. We're still in positions where we had to like knowledge, quote unquote, had to be ingrained in us. We had to even be being, as in we got brainwashed basically. Because I can remember back then where the biology teacher was saying that evolution was wrong. Like, she had to reluctantly teach us about evolution, reluctantly. But then after the class, basically, she said that we shouldn't actually take what she said, as in we shouldn't actually believe it. We should, because the white people that came up with that idea are Satanists, and they are devil worshippers, they are evil people. And so, like, just imagine that kind of like mentality where the people that are even teaching you don't even believe in what they're actually teaching. Do you understand? They don't hold themselves accountable. The researches that they claim to do, they don't go to full extent. They just do it because they just have to, because they're looking for the money or whatever. There was no enthusiasm in the teachers. Like, the teachers were always bitter. The teachers, like, and then you now ask yourself, like, how can students learn? Like, how can students be comfortable enough to enjoy what they're actually learning? When, like, I can remember in primary school, we had this math teacher. His name was Uncle Fire. Like, till today, I don't even know his name. You understand? Till today, I don't know I don't even know his real name. But what I can remember him with was that his name was Uncle Fire. Like, for a math teacher to be called Uncle Fire, like, you have to understand that this person, and Nigerian schools, they always caned. Like, flogging is still a thing in Nigeria, even to this day. Like, caning students that are not your children is still a thing in Nigeria to this day. So back then it was like a lot more rampant than it is today. And this guy was just so fucking. The reason why they called him Uncle Fire is because, like, he flogged a lot, he caned a lot, he whipped a lot. And so now, how do you expect a child that is already scared of you to learn? Do you understand? To like accept and receive the knowledge and the information that you're trying to like bestow on him. Like, how do you not expect a child to go about that when they already fear you, when there is already an inherent fear of you? You understand? And this guy was a maths teacher, and you know how difficult maths was back then. And so like, it was just basically impossible. Like, students feared the guy, and to me, looking back, he was just a bad teacher. Like, you cannot tell me that somebody, like, there are teachers that even to this day go ahead to fail all their students. If you're the kind of teacher that fails all your students, the problem is you, not the students. Because you cannot tell me that everybody in the whole class, or everybody in the fucking department, all the students in the department are just bad. The problem is you. Like, if you're a teacher that fails all your students because, quote unquote, you're harsh or you're strict or any of the other nonsense or excuses that they give, you're just a fucking bad teacher. You're not good at teaching. So these are the kind of problems that we had, and we still have to this day in Nigeria, where teachers were nonchalant. They are just bitter. They were so, reluctant to do the jobs. They were not enthusiastic about the subjects that they were teaching. Some of them, like, and what they teach, there was usually a huge difference between what they taught and the assignments that they gave. And you'd be like, I'm not stupid. Why am I having this kind of weird ass assignment when this is not like? And then there's this thing in Nigeria where in Nigerian schools where teachers will just come and write notes, and you see students just like writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. Like, where are we writing? Where are we writing all these things to? We just keep writing and with little to no explanation, and then they tell you, okay, read the book or read the fucking textbook. Like, everything was just a mess. Everything was just so disorganized. Everything was just so incoherent. Everything was just so lax, man. Nigerian, like, as in, looking back, it was mad. It was wild, but there was a lot to it. So going back to this biology teacher that was telling us not to believe in evolution because the people that came up with it were Satanists and stuff like that. And if now you have to like imagine that if this is what like a teacher can say to her students, like how do you now expect students to learn, and not even only to learn, to like understand whatever it is that you're trying to teach them? How do you expect students to just take it in and for it to be in our brains forever and ever? This is why like cheating and like cheating in exams has always been so rampant, has always been a thing in Nigeria. That's why you see people till today paying to pass exams like JAMB and WAEC and NECO. People still pay to have people write for them. Like, it's still a thing in Nigeria because students don't go to school to learn. You understand? Students don't go to school to acquire knowledge. They go to school to like cram. They go to school to, just get the barest minimum of information and knowledge, and just to be able to pass exams. They don't learn for the long term. They don't learn for, they don't teach for us to be able to have the ability to go through life. You understand? They don't teach us. They just teach us what we are supposed to know now. And if we don't learn it the way that they are teaching us, if we don't like go about it the way that they've dictated it for us to go about it, it is considered a failure. We are considered, dumb. We are considered not bright. We are considered not smart. You understand? Imagine putting like, there's this meme, or there's this picture. I'm going to like put it up here, where we see a lion, and then we see a snake, and then we see like different animals in a class, all being taught how to fly by like the teacher is a bird, and then they're all being taught how to fly. Like, how do you expect all these different animals, all these different people with different personalities and different interests, how do you expect them to be good at be good at the one thing that you're spreading to everybody? Like, obviously there'll be people that will be very exceptional at it, right? Because it's just their talent. But for so many others, it's not going to be the same, because it's just not what they're inclined naturally to do. It's just not what they're interested in, basically. So learning was never fun. Like, education was never fun. Like education was never fun for me. I never really wanted like to read, as in school made me hate reading. You understand? It was when I graduated, like the irony of the fact that it was when I left school that I fell in love with reading. You understand? It kind of trips me, because like I never really liked how they went about it. They never made it enjoyable. They never made it inviting. They never made it perceptible. They never really, it was never something that interested me. It was something that I just had to do out of necessity, and I hated every bit of it. Coupled with the fact that the teachers, like I said earlier, were just sadistic. You see teachers that flog students to unconsciousness. Like, there have been countless stories of teachers that flog students, that whipped students to the point where the students fainted, to the point where the students became so unconscious they had to like be rushed to the hospitals. And you'd be asking yourself, like, this, like, why will you be doing this to so, like, I've paid school fees. Do you understand? The another point again I want to make is the fact that we had, like, in the private school. Keep in mind that everything I'm talking about here happened in private schools. So we have not started talking about the government schools. We have not started talking about the public schools. You understand? Everything I've talked about so far happened in posh private schools, where like the school fees back then was like, it was very expensive back then. We had all the quote unquote amenities that private schools came with. Do you understand? So all these teachers now, like, we had things like Labor Day in secondary school. We had like Labor Day usually on Fridays, where students had to like cut grass And just like this is one of the points that Kemi Badenoch made, where students had to cut like large fields of grass with cutlass in a fucking private school that you paid school fees for. Like, make it make sense. Just looking back at all these things, like, make it make sense to me. The fact that we had teachers that were so sadistic that they would flog students to the point where the students fainted, and they get rushed to the clinic. Like, make that make sense. Do you understand? It was never an environment conducive for learning. Do you understand? If you look at how schools used to be in the past, if you look at the history of schools, you understand, they used to be places where people who had this thirst for knowledge, people who wanted to like know more about the world, know more about human anatomy, know more about evolution, know more about like animals and stuff like that, and health and foods and different aspects of life. They all came, and it was free. Do you understand? They all gathered around the person and the people, the scholars that knew the most at the time. And then whatever knowledge that they had was impacted to all these enthusiasts. And they themselves, they went out to do their own research. They asked questions. There was usually, there was debate. They debated all the fucking time. But the modern day school system, not even only in Nigeria, turned it into something that had to be so, I've used this word over and over, regimented, militaristic in nature. You didn't, the questions that you were allowed to ask had to do with the subject at hand. You understand? You were not allowed to think outside the box. You were not allowed to be creative. And also the teachers the teachers are always sadistic. They are always flogging students. Like, why? It just never made any sense to me. Like, it never ever made any sense to me. And it happened to me. I'm not even going to lie to you. Like, everybody, every Nigerian that has gone through the Nigerian school system have had that experience of being caned, of being whipped, of being punished unnecessarily. Not even only the teachers punished. Like, okay, when I left that the first private school that I attended, I then attended a government school. And in this government school, right, bullying was like the order of the day. Students were basically warlords. Like, senior students were basically warlords. Senior students had all the power. Senior students were fucking sadistic. They were evil. Like, I think there was a story. I don't know how true the story was actually anyways, but there was a story where a senior student locked a junior student in a cupboard and forgot about him, and the guy died. So this is how sadistic these people were. These students were, where they ran the hostels, because we all had to live in hostels. And in Nigeria we had boarding schools and day schools. I attended boarding schools. I never attended any day school. So, and in the boarding schools we had to live in hostels, right? And so they ran the hostels like drug cartels. They ran the hostels like they were mafians. You understand? And so whatever you had, normally when we were going back to schools after holidays, we came with provisions. We came with new clothes, new school uniforms. We came with everything was refreshed, everything was refurbished. But we knew that it was never going to last, because I'm just remembering the experiences I had back then because the school I attended was Federal Government College, or Kigwe. So I'm just kind of remembering it's just taking me back, because the experiences I had were so fucked up. You knew going back to school, you knew that we were going to get things were just hell. Things were hellish back then. You understand? The senior students will take everything that you had and still punish you on it for not, for example, let's say you brought a tin of milk, and it was not appropriate size of tin of milk that these fucking idiots wanted. He's going to collect it and still punish you. Bro, why? He'll collect it and still punish you for not bringing the size I want. So this is kind of life that we lived back then. And Education was secondary. That place was just you had to survive. You just had to like survive. You understand? Education was secondary. You know how like in Euphoria, the HBO TV show Euphoria, where all this like the one with what's her name, Zendaya, and what's this girl's fucking name, Sydney Sweeney. You know how education is just so secondary in that TV show. This is just how it was back in FGC or Kigwe. Education was secondary. The only difference is that in this one, like in the school I attended, like you had to like wake up every day in fear. You have to wake up every day and try to like survive the fucking senior students, and you have to try your best to navigate punishment. Like you have to try your best to escape. Bro, education was secondary, bro. I'm just thinking of it right now, man. It was that bad. Senior students were so brutal. Where there is this prefects they used to call Lord Raiden. This guy's his nickname was Lord Raiden because of how tough this nigga was. Back then we would line up. There was this we had this central dining hall where everybody, first of all, the junior students from JS1 to JS3 would have their. I don't even remember how they did it, but I think the junior students actually had their meals first because there was a lot of us. The school fees back then in the government school was kind of cheap, and so a lot of people flocked into it, and they had more students than they needed. And so the dining hall was too big to like contain from JS1 to SS3. And so the JS1 to JS3 students had to like had their meals first, and then after they had their meals, then SS1 to SS3 would then go in to have their meals. And so we all had to like line up. Do you understand? We all had to like line up and wait for the junior students to finish. And in that line, in that queue, you had to have your plates and your cup and your forks and your spoons and your knives. You had to like have your badge. You had to have your socks. You had to have bro. I hope I hope that's not still going on. I hope Nigeria has changed and Nigeria has like had a little bit sense of normalcy, that stuff like that don't still happen in 2025. I hope that they've abolished this whole idea that prefects had all the power and prefects had the authority to punish anybody that they wanted to punish, or to punish anybody that they want to punish. I hope that kind of stuff don't happen again, because it was hell back then. And if you didn't come complete, if you didn't come with your not even you had to come with your flat plates and your bowl and your cup had to have water in it. So just imagine standing in a queue under the sun for close to an hour, just holding a cup of water covered by your bowl, and you had to have your fucking badge, because the badges were not, the school uniforms were just cheaply done, that they got torn. It was just hell, bro. It was just, imagine hell. It was hell. It was worse than going to boot camp. I'm going to say that, yes, it was worse than going to boot camp, because if you didn't come complete, you would get flogged, you get whipped, you'd be set aside to be part of the people that would go and cut this giant land of, as in just grass, elephant grass. And elephant grass is the most dreadful thing that you can cut with cutlass. And the cutlasses were not even that good. They were just poorly, everything was fucking hell. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Everything was bad. So imagine how will I learn when all these things have been put in place, and all these distractions and all these obstructions have been put in place? How do you expect a child to learn? How do you expect somebody to gain knowledge? How do you expect somebody to graduate with not even with flying colors, but with knowledge that can carry them throughout their life? How do you expect somebody to go about that? To me, it was never the Nigerian educational system is never really about the education per se. It's more about the relationships and the experiences that we get to have. You understand? This is something that Kemi Badenoch missed. you understand? She was trying to, downgrade and, ridicule the Nigerian school system. But in a way, yes, all these experiences that we had are experiences that are made to turn into like good stories. Do you understand? Like right now, I'm talking about it. I'm talking about it right now because as bad as the experiences were, I mean, the worst of the experiences usually creates the best stories. So yeah, back then life in school was tough. Life in secondary school was tough, and like I said earlier, it was never really about the education. The education was actually secondary. It was the experiences and the friends that you made, and the experiences that you had back then. It's all that matters. It's all that will continue to matter. Like me being a crippling introvert, I still had like very good experiences. I still like, this is me now, because I was in that government school for a year. And in that government school, let me just go a little bit more in depth about it. In that government school, it was large. Like till I left that school, I didn't see the end of the school. That's how large this school was. And everything in the school was just subpar. I mean, it's a government school. The infrastructure was just so poor. You understand? Everything was just bad. The classrooms were just bad. You had to have your own desk. Like you had to carry your own desk from your hostel to the class, because if you didn't do that, there was so much stealing in the school, bro. If you didn't like carry your desk from your hostel to your classroom every fucking day, and then after classes you carry your fucking desk, and the desks, I'm not talking about, you see, one thing I'm not talking about, how it, like, look, let me give you an example. In American schools, I always envied American schools. I always envied the depictions of American schools in movies, right? How everything was just so, cool and just so liberal and just so aesthetically pleasing. The way they depicted schools in America, it was always something that you longed for. You understand? It was always something that you wished you were part of, and you wish you could attend, you wish you could like go to. Do you understand? They always had this, everybody had their lockers, everybody had their, and I always wanted a locker. Like one thing I loved about the depictions in American schools were the lockers that they had in their locker rooms, right? I always like wanted to just be part of that. I just always wanted to have my own locker. Do you understand? And so the desks I'm talking about is not like the desks we see in like American schools, all those like lights. No, we're talking about wooden desks. Oh god, I'm talking about wooden, giant, fucking heavy ass desks, and you have to like carry it from your hostel. And I'm not talking, the hostels are usually very far from the classrooms, and there are no roads. The roads, like, it was just like muddy and hilly and sandy. And man, it was bad. So now, this is the kind of experience I had, where early in the morning you had to wake up. Not even that you had to wake up, you had to be flogged awake. The senior students will flog you awake like 5 a.m. And there was no running water in the hostels. So you had to like go like a kilometer, like you had to like travel a fucking kilometer to fetch water. Not for yourself. No. Not for yourselves, bro. For the fucking senior students. You had to like travel a kilometer, 5 a.m. They will flog you to wake up. And this, I'm not singling myself out as this like victim. That I'm talking about, everybody was, as far as you're not an SS3 student, you were punished, because SS3 students were the ones that had all the power. You understand? They were like, they were the top dogs. And the SS3 students punished from SS2 down. The SS2 students punished everybody from SS1 down. Like, this is just, it was just like that. You understand? Everybody just like rampaged and scruffled and bullied anybody they perceived they had power over. You understand? Except for people that they genuinely feared. Like, there's this guy, there was a new student, I can remember there was a new student back then that came into the school, and he was like a fucking giant. He was a JS3 student. I think his nickname back then was, is it Blackie or Biggie? I've forgotten what they used to call him. But he was a fucking giant, right? and he was so fucking tough. So even if you were SS3, like nobody really messed with him that much because of how big this guy was. But for the most part, like everybody that was above you bullied you. If you were an SS1 student, you got bullied by an SS2 student. If you were a JS2 student, you got bullied by a JS3 student. If you're a JS1 student, you got bullied by a JS2 student. Like, and you know what always boggled my mind back then? Like, I always asked myself, like, why would you want to do to somebody else what they're doing to you? Like, it never made sense to me. Like, when I eventually became a senior student, I never bullied anybody. I never pestered anybody. I never, took advantage of everybody. And to my credit, it's not like I'm trying to brag. Junior students loved me. Junior students felt like they could relate to me. I broke that. I deliberately chose to break that cycle of not bullying people just because I am a class ahead of them. You understand? I never did that. I just didn't think it was smart. I didn't find it smart. And there were other ways I came up with to be able to get what I want. One cardinal truth that will always remain the truth is that if you're in service to other people, like your name will go far. You understand? If you're kind to other people, your name will go far. But if you're a tyrant, if you're being antagonistic towards other people, for a short while, yeah, you might thrive and you might blossom, but it won't last. You understand? Because I remember when I left school, randomly on the road, I came in contact with one of the senior students, and funny enough, it was this fucking Lord Reading that I came in contact with, and he apologized. He eventually apologized to me, because I can remember one time, he eventually apologized. I'm not going to go into detail. There was one time that he singled I and my brother out, and he made a mess of us in front of the whole school back then. And it really it fucked us up mentally. But after we left school, just randomly on not even in the same states, in different states, I and my brother just randomly fucking found him just there, we had all the opportunity to just probably kill him and maybe dismember his body and just scatter it because of what he did to us back then. But the fact that he then came clean and he just humbled himself and then apologized to us for all that happened in school, he then looked to us pathetic. He looked so fucking... But I myself, that when I eventually became a senior student, and I went out of my way to just be kind to the junior students and to, try to, because I had been in that position. I had been in situations where I was bullied and I was taken advantage of, and my teams were taken from me. And I didn't want these little ones to go through the same process, even though they inescapably and inevitably went through it. But I didn't want to be the person to do it to them. Obviously, there were other people that were bullying them and we were harassing them and taking their stuff, but I just didn't want it to be me. So I was always kind to them, and I was always empathetic towards them, and I was always trying to steer them into the right direction and lead them and tell them that this is how things are supposed to be. And I was just trying to make the hell that they were already living in a lot, is it more or less conducive? I don't know. So this is how life used to be back then in school, where you had to wake up very early in the morning by 5 a.m. and go and fetch water a kilometer away for the senior students to use to have their baths, and then you had to go back again to fetch water for yourselves. And if you were late to the dine, because we always had to have breakfast 7 in the morning, and so now if you're late, there's no way that you weren't going to be late for you to do. And we also had morning duties where you had to sweep a specific area. It was just stupid. So you obviously be late, right? And then you still get punished for being late to the fucking dining hall. This was the fun, looking back now, right? It's fun to talk about. It's kind of interesting to actually lay out, but it was not enjoyable back then. And A lot of people have gone through this. A lot of Nigerians. This is just the norm in Nigeria. This is just how things are and continue to be in Nigeria. And I hope that they're actually changing. I hope things are changing, and this kind of like mentality and this kind of like lifestyle and way of life in the Nigerian educational system is not how, as in, we're no longer doing it like that again. So another thing again that we used to do, I think, okay, this is something that I experienced in the first school that I attended. We used to have something called morning prep. In fact, not even only in that school, like in a lot of like Nigerian schools, a lot of boarding schools, there's something called prep, where after the normal after the normal school hour in the evenings by 4 o'clock, like, okay, let me go through it. In the mornings, right? On Monday mornings, let's say by 4 o'clock in the morning, we usually woke up for exercise. Like, we jogged around the entire school, and it was fun. Like, let me not even like lie about that one. Like, jogging around the entire school with everybody, as in the prefects to like ring the bell 4 o'clock in the morning, and everybody will come out for jogging, and it was usually very cold, you understand, and we're always like very sleepy and tired, and then would like do like some physical exercises and then get ready for the jogging. Like, the entire fucking school, everybody in the school got ready for jogging. And some people usually escaped it, some people usually hid just so they would sleep more. And after the jogging, like, we would jog from like 4 o'clock till, let's say, 6 o'clock, I believe. Yeah, if I remember correctly, we would jog around the school from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And after that, we'll take we'll like, I don't know, be giving numbers. If I remember correctly, we'll either be like the head, as in the prefects of our different hostels, would assign numbers to us, the people that attended the jogging, and everybody would have a specific number. And after everything, we'll go back to the hostels and then get ready for school proper. As in this private school I attended was actually, as in, it's a private school, so it had all the amenities. We had showers, like, it was very, very good. The hostels were up to date at the time. And so we'd have showers and get ready for school, and iron our uniforms and everything. Everything was just cool. And then get ready for dining. And we'll go to the dining hall and have breakfast. And after the dining hall, we'll now go for assembly. And it was during the assembly that they will now call out the numbers. And it was during the assembly they will now call out the numbers of the people that attended the morning jogging. And if you didn't have a number, I don't know, if you didn't have a number, bro, you'd remain, and then you'll be punished either by flogging or by picking trash all over the school, or by the inevitable cutting grass. So it was fun, bro. Everything was fun. Kemi Badenoch made it sound like it was just hell. And yes, it was hell, don't get me wrong. Don't fucking get me wrong. It was hell, it was torturous, it was sadistic, it was just bad, it was violent. Some people died, some people felt like, a lot of people felt sick all the time. It was bad, but looking back, it was fun. It was, I feel it is something that we all had to go through to create our character, to become a lot more aware of ourselves, to be toughened. You understand? It was just, but she made it sound like it was something just inconsolably bad, or something that you cannot just, there was no good aspects. Yeah, like I just said, there might not have been good aspects to it, but telling the story in hindsight, in retrospect, I mean, it's a good story. So that's just what it is. So after the assembly, we then went to class, and we had breaks by, I think we had breaks by 11 a.m. or 11:30. We had breaks, and then we went for lunch by 2 p.m. And after 2 p.m., after lunch, we had siestas. During siestas was usually time where people, the talkatives, would want to like make noise, but then again, they didn't allow you to be yourself, right? They didn't want you to be yourself. So you had, this is what I mean by the school system was so regimented, even for the fact that yes, I understand that we had to like be physically active. We had to like, be physically active. So I'm not going to like say that's a bad thing, but during like the siestas where everybody's like supposed to sleep, right? There are some people that would usually want to use that time to, be social and talk to their friends and stuff like that. They still made it a punishable. They still made it a punishable offense. You understand? If you're not observing the siesta, your name will be written down by the Kemi Badenoch types. Do you understand? Your name will now be written down by the Kemi Badenoch types, and then you'll be punished later after siesta. If your name is called out, you'll be flogged. This is just stupid. I don't know. So then after siestas, we'll now go for something called prep, evening prep, where you go to study. And I never liked prep. Not for a day. I never liked prep because nothing made sense to me, bro. Nothing fucking made sense to me. School was just that terrible. School was just that bad. Like, I never enjoyed it. Like, I found it so boring and so unnecessary, and so just, as in, all the things I have come to enjoy, all the things I've come to find so much interest in and so much love for, like history, like science, like astronomy, as in all of these things, man, philosophy. I love these. We were never really exposed to these things because some of them, like for example, philosophy and like some of these things, we are even considered demonic in Nigerian schools. Do you understand? Like, we were never taught the things that I actually loved and enjoyed. This is one of the reasons why I didn't even like reading. But then I left school and I found things that I actually enjoyed reading, books that I actually enjoyed reading, subjects that I actually wanted to know about, wanted to know more about, and wanted to explore and gain all the knowledge about. You understand? So prepping, like going to prep, was just to me a waste of time. And like every other activity in school, a lot of students like usually, dodged it. A lot of students usually hid in the hostels, and like every other thing again, after prep, your names were written down, and numbers were given for people who do for the ones who attended the prep. And if your name, if you're found missing, you'll also be punished. Like everything was just revolved around punishment, and if you didn't do what they asked you to do the way they asked you to do it, you'll be punished. Like, this is just how school was back then, man. So in midst of all of it, I still made friends. I still made like lifelong friends. I still like had experiences, memorable experiences that I'll never forget. Like the friendship to me, even though like I'm a chronic introvert, right? The friendship to me is what like mattered the most. I still have friends that I still talk to this day. Do you understand? I'm still in like group chats from, my classmates back then that I'm still like, we're still in contact with today. And it was just cool, man. It was just like really, really fun. The education, not so much. You understand? The education, they were not prepping us to engage properly with life. They taught us things that, like, they taught us things. You know how everybody complains about how they don't teach us how to like do our taxes, and they don't teach us how to just go about life. Let me tell you something. The truth of the matter is this: with the way the schooling system is, if they were actually teaching us how to do our taxes, most of us wouldn't be interested in it because of how they would go about it. You understand? Most of us wouldn't be interested in learning how to do our taxes or learning how to like go about life, because they just didn't do it in a creatively brilliant way. They just didn't do it in a way that is captivating. Like we've seen, like I'm sure most of you have seen like videos of new ways of doing videos online of new ways of how teachers go about teaching their students how to do the multiplication, how to do their multiplication or how to do division and like stuff like that. New ways of how to like learn things or how to like retain things that you've learned. These are things that we were never taught. These are like, yes, we are victims of evolution, of the evolutionary process. To me, the reason why I'm saying we are victims is because as time goes on, things get refined. And back then, I just feel like in our own time, it was not as refined as the way things are right now. Because you see videos online of, all these like new students, and the way they like do their multiplication in their heads, and they always look to me as, the new, as in, they always look to me as the upgraded human, like just another step in human evolution. That's what they always like look to me as, because it usually looks so magical and so brilliant and so fantastical. Like you watch them doing their multiplications and doing their divisions and additions, like numbers that doing it so fast and so efficiently and quicker than calculators even. And you're like, wow, this is so fucking fascinating. I can never do this. You understand? Like I am not biologically capable of doing this the way these students are, and it's just so fucking impressive. But this is just something that we never had in our time. In our time, it was fucking I remember as these like Indian people that used to come to schools. God. I don't know if anybody remembers those Indian people that used to come to schools with their fucking magic tricks. Why do? All those Indian people that used to come to schools. It was school, man. It was school. Let's not lie to ourselves, first of all. Let me not lie. Those Indian people that used to come, they'll use paper to like make roses. They'll use paper to like make beds. They'll use paper to make very different like crafts. I don't know if they still do that to this day, bro. But it was fun, though. But this is what we had. We had excursions. We used to go on excursions. We used to travel to like very interesting places like the coal mine, and like very interesting places back then. And yeah, that was it, man. That was just school for you. There were a lot of bad aspects to it, but there are also like a lot of good aspects. But the friendship and the relationships you had. But another thing again, on the still on the aspects of bullying, right? Me now being like a chronic introvert. And even though I had very good experiences, right? I didn't actually have a lot of friends. I just had like very few friends, very few close friends. And for me to be able to want to I really wanted to like fit in back then. Back then, I really didn't know myself. I was just like a fucking dweeb. You understand? I was just like a fucking teenager, man. I was just a dweeb. I was a nerd back then. All I just wanted to do was like watch fucking anime and play video games and just like talk about movies. Like, in Nigeria, you understand? Like being a nerd was looked down on. You understand? Somebody that, loved cartoons or loved anime and loved video games and loved movies, like they looked at you as soft. They looked at you as like a mommy's boy, because obviously, yes, I came from like a middle class family, like we were well to do. And so, all the like, we were called ajebotas. Like there's this like slang in Nigeria where if you come from like a rich family or from a relatively well-to-do family, you're called an ajebota. But if you come from a poor family where you're from the streets and you know a lot about the streets and you know a lot about the hard life, you're called like an ajepako. You understand? So for me now I tried to fit in. I didn't really know myself back then. I didn't really have a full grasp and understanding of myself. I didn't know I wasn't designed to fit in. And so in my bid to want to fit in, to want to like make friends, to want to be accepted, to want to be known as cool and hip and just to be social, to be a lot more social, I had to like resort to doing very questionable, embarrassing things. God, I remember back then going to the girls' hostel. Bro. I used to go to girls' hostel, man. Sometimes, okay. And I remember when I was caught going to the girls' hostel, obviously, and then I was flogged in front of the school. And honestly, I'm not even going to lie, I took it like a fucking champ. Like I was flogged, I was like laid down in front, like it was during the assembly, and I was called out, and then I was like laid down in front of the whole school, and they told me to like take off my trousers. This is just they told me to take off my trousers, and then I took off my trousers and I was wearing only boxers, and then they flogged me. for going to the girls' hostel. And I took it like a fucking champ. Let's not even like kid ourselves about it, man. That is one of the things I remember vividly. I took it like a fucking champ. But then as time went on, when I changed school, and then I got into the other private school, which was actually a Catholic school. This was where I now became like a senior student. Even though I was never a prefect. We then used to hop the fence and leave the school premises to go, like as a senior student, like you had this I think this is something that can be found in every Nigerian secondary school, right? The senior students had all the power, like I said earlier, and so they were the most rebellious. The senior students were the most rebellious. They usually fought with teachers. You understand? Because now we are turning 16, 17. We are now becoming, becoming grown men. Most of us already started growing beards, and most of us were stronger than the teachers, and the teachers were like old men and old women, and they were frail and fragile and so fucking conservative. They didn't want us to they didn't want us to be human. They just wanted us to remain in that box of regimentation that they've put us in ever since we were in junior in JS1. Do you understand? They just wanted us to remain like that. They didn't want us to change. They didn't want us to become men. They didn't want us to become our own people. You understand? You're just so weird and flawed and you're just weird, actually. So for you now to want to be your own person, and then they're stopping you from actually being a person, obviously you'd want to rebel. So the senior students were the most rebellious back then, and we used to hop the fence and leave the school premises. We leave the school premises and go to the game house and play video games and go to the market and buy things that we actually wanted. We came to school with muftis. Another thing again I want to talk about is the fact that we used to bring in contrabands back then in school. We would come with they didn't allow muftis. They didn't allow you to bring your home clothes. And so we smuggled them in, and we came up with very creative ways of smuggling things that even our parents didn't even know. So we come up with creative ways of smuggling phones, of smuggling alcohol, of smuggling porn, of smuggling what else? Clothes, shoes, you understand, wristwatches, jewelries, perfumes, just to show your mates and just show your friends that it was fun. Let's not lie. Kemi Badenoch has it all, she has it all wrong. And the Catholic school I attended was actually a boys Catholic school. So we're all boys in the school. But then just over the fence was the girls' side. And so we only met the only times the males and the females interacted with each other was during sermon, during church. What do they call it again? Sunday mass or 6 o'clock mass. We always prayed the rosary every 6 p.m. and 12 p.m. and 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. Yeah. So the only times that we interacted with the females was during church, during time for church. You understand? And so we had to naturally, biologically, the natural thing to do, the biological thing to do, the human thing to do. We had to dress properly to, present ourselves to these girls. And also the girls did the same thing too. And so it was just, it was supposed to be the natural way of life. But these teachers did all they could to impede and to suppress that natural instinct and natural tendencies. And I think to me that is just satanic. Life in school, life in secondary school, was fun. It was bad. It was hellish. It had its bad moments, but overall, it was an experience worth having. And honestly, as bad as it is, right? As bad as it all is, I would want my child to kind of have that experience too, because it gives you character. You understand? It gives you character. It prepares you. It wasn't even the education that prepared us for life. It was the experiences that we had in that, as in that environment that actually prepared us and that actually toughened us up for all that life would eventually, bring, or would eventually like throw at us. You understand? The education, like everybody has forgotten, as in most of the things that we used to like learn back then, everybody has forgotten about it. You understand? We have forgotten about most of it, and we've educated ourselves on new things. We've educated ourselves. We have gotten a broader perspective on actual education. You understand? I've read more books than I did back in school. All the schools I attended, I've read more books as an adult than I did back then. I know more things. Like, to me personally, another thing again is that, right, we got into school very early. I feel like there is supposed to be a time where you, as in, no, I'm not talking about secondary school. I'm talking about the university, right? There's supposed to be time. You don't just get into university at 16. That doesn't make any sense. You understand? Or 17. Like, you should like take a gap year, as in at least get into university at 18. At least that way your brain would be, as in you'd be mentally prepared and mentally ready for it, for all that is going to like throw at you. Even to this day, like universities are not even exempt from all I've been talking about. Nigerian universities are even worse, because most of Nigerian universities, we have very few private universities in Nigeria. The private universities are not as much as the government universities or the public universities or the polytechnics that we have in Nigeria, right? So most of the universities have very poor infrastructure. Like I think that was like a month ago, where where Ghana was like showcasing its new universities and its new hostels, and then we're comparing the Ghanaian universities with the ones that we have in Nigeria, and Nigerian universities are still so behind, still so outdated, still so dilapidated, still so missing in infrastructure, in learning materials, in just to make things, as in you cannot call those things that we have in universities, like, it's insulting to call it a university, because that place is still inconducive for learning. Those places are still inconducive for learning. Like, when I left Nigeria and then I came here to study, it was just different. It was just 1,000 times different. Like, not even 1,000, 1,000,000 times different. A university where there's like free Wi-Fi, where there's like a giant library, or as in a university where like the environment alone is just so blissful and just so peaceful and quiet and calming, and you'd be like, oh yes, this is a place for learning. You understand? It's not like that in Nigerian universities. So Nigerian universities, you still have to hustle, you still have to strive, you still have to go through culture. Like in secondary school, we had the bullies, and we had the miscreants and all those like people that didn't want to like learn, and they were always trying to just making life difficult. But in the universities, we have cultists, full-blown violent cultists with their guns and their fucking knives, and like they don't want to, as in, it's a lot more dangerous in Nigerian universities, and nothing is being done about it. So again, so you now leaving secondary school at 16 or at 17 and just hopping into the Nigerian university is not good. Like, there is no people like to think that, people, when we were young, we had this dream, this fantasy of being married by age 25 with your job and your car and your house, and you're already established and everything is already balanced. and that was the reason why we always wanted to like leave secondary school so early and get into the university even earlier, so that we would be able to accomplish all these things. But life is not like that. First of all, we have something in Nigeria called ASU. I don't even know what ASU means. So, but they're always going on strike. You would think that, as a university student, you would just go through your 4 years of education. No, some people, sometimes it extends to 5 years, 6 years, because of what? There's always strike in Nigeria. In the Nigerian universities, they always go on strike because they don't pay the lecturers, they don't pay the school bodies, they just don't. The government doesn't care, because the government doesn't care. And so you see lecturers, another problem we have again in Nigeria are the lecturers. The lecturers are just these bitter, vile, narcissistic, fucking evil ass people that take advantage of students. For you to like, for as a woman, as a girl in a Nigerian university that is relatively attractive, for you to, if you're not the type that's like, educationally inclined or academically inclined rather, it would be easy for you to like get good grades if you sleep with your lecturers. Like having sex with a lecturer in Nigeria is a normal thing. It's not a good thing. It's not an advisable thing. But Nigeria is so fucked up that it's a normal thing. Do you understand? It's a normal thing. Back then, I can remember when I was working in a hotel in Nigeria. There is this. First of all, he was a pastor in my church. And so, but he was also a lecturer. And so he used to come to the hotel with different girls. And I mean, what more can I say about that? So this is just how life is in Nigeria. Everything has been designed to make life difficult in Nigeria. Everything is just designed to be shitty. So there is a lot that we can learn from other countries, other well-to-do countries, like in Finland. I love the educational system in Finland. It's the best in the entire world. I mean, we have evolved to the stage now where we can use AI now to teach, and AI is going to like take over the teaching jobs in first world countries, and eventually it's going to affect third world countries. So yeah, we can incorporate AI into like, and also we should try to like change the schooling system. You understand? It shouldn't be this authoritarian kind of system where the teacher has all the power, and if you don't do it the way the teacher wants, you're going to get punished, or you're going to get failed, and you're going to be termed dull or dumb or unintelligent. That's not the way it's supposed to go. School is supposed to be a place where, it's supposed to be this, amalgamation of ideas where people come together to learn, to ask questions, to think things through, to debate, to write down, like just to like flesh out their thoughts and refine it until they get it to a point where it's perfect, it's logically perfect, and then that's what school is supposed to be, not what we have in Nigeria. So to an extent, Kemi Badenoch was right when she talked about the condition that Nigerian schools are in, but she was right to an extent. It was not the whole point. Good things happened, very, very great things happened. Like we had great experiences, we made a lot of friends, lifelong friends. And overall, it's something that I would actually want my child to experience for himself. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Kemi Badenoch was right about Nigerian school system. And that's it. The only way that we can prove her wrong, the only way that, we can prove her wrong is to change, is to make things better for us. So thank you guys for chilling with me. If you listened to this point, if you enjoyed it to this point, and you know that yes, all I've talked about, you experienced it, to leave a comment below and like it if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more. Share it with people you think might also find it interesting and relatable. And follow me on Twitter, GeneralPrime11. And yeah, thank you guys for chilling with me. Thank you for all the support that you've been giving me, and I appreciate it all, regardless of how little they are. And yeah, that's that about that, man. I'll talk to you guys later. All right, bye everybody.